Hello, Darwin Harris.
Hey, how you doing? What's
Good. How
up?
you doing?
Great, great. Just staying inside, chilling.
That's what we're all doing.
Yes.
So we were just talking. It's been about 25 years since we've seen each other.
Yeah.
We both went to college in Kirksville, Missouri, at what the time was Northeast Missouri State University. And did you graduate from Truman, or did you graduate from Northeast?
I did graduate. I graduated from Northeast, so in '95, which was the year before the last of the Northeast Missouri Staters. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
they changed the name to Truman in '96.
Right.
Yeah, and it's now Truman State University.
Yeah.
So we both majored in theater there, and I went on a different path. I never did any professional theater, but you followed that acting path, and that's what we're here to talk about today.
Yeah.
So my first question for you is, what was your tell me about your decision to make that leap and pursue an acting career?
So, from in fifth grade, I started playing trumpet. And I was, in all the concert bands, orchestras, jazz bands. And I basically was part of this jazz group in high school. It was called the U City Jazz Dispatch, St. Louis, University City is where I'm from. And it was trumpet, myself, drummer, bass player, piano player. And we had like an actual quartet. We would go around St. Louis, go around Missouri and have gigs. And initially that was my goal. I wanted to be a jazz trumpet player. And then sophomore year, my buddy Leonard, who's actually an actor now, he works a lot. He was auditioning for a production of West Side Story in high school, and he convinced me to audition for it. So got that small little part as a jet. I think the character's name was Big Deal. And I did that, it was fun. It was a cool little experience, like an extracurricular thing to do in school. And then the next year we did a production of Dreamgirls, and I got I guess kind of a lead. I played the lead singer's brother, Cece, who was a songwriter for the group. And our director asked me if I could incorporate my trumpet playing on stage for the show. So when the band was singing, the group was singing, I would be on stage playing my trumpet. And at that point, I realized that I was more comfortable on stage acting in that particular show than I ever was playing trumpet. So then that summer, my buddy Leonard and I went to go see this movie, Mo Better Blues, with a Denzel Washington, Wesley Snipes, a Spike Lee movie. And Denzel plays a trumpet player. And at the end of the movie, I don't want to ruin it, but basically something happens where he's unable to play again.
I think you could spoil a movie from 40 years ago.
We're right. So he gets into a fight, busts his lip, and then he tries to return as a trumpet player, and he's unable to play again. And basically his whole livelihood was based on his lips. And then I started thinking okay, what happens if I slip in the shower, if I get in a car accident, anything that could affect my mouth in that kind of way, to have your whole career and your livelihood based on something like that. And that combined with the fact that I was just really, really comfortable on stage. So West Side Story, Dreamgirls, that summer I did a Boy Scout video, like a little training video that I acted in. And I just really just felt in love with that aspect of storytelling, just acting and being on stage and being on camera and stuff. So that was when I decided to major in theater wherever I decided to go to college, which ended up being Northeast.
How did you end up at Northeast?
So I applied to two schools, Northeast and DePaul University. And DePaul theater program is a conservatory that you have to go in and audition for. So I drove to Chicago with my parents, auditioned for the acting conservatory. And I didn't get into the acting conservatory. I got into the program, which is called Theater Studies, which is basically like the general theater program there, but it's not specifically the acting program. And then, something that I didn't even think about, that of course my parents were thinking about, was the cost. And at the time, tuition there, man, was like $25,000, $30,000 a year. And some people actually got full ride theater scholarships for that amount there, but
Wow.
obviously not getting into the program, I didn't. And then I just, I don't want to say I settled for Northeast, but I ended up going to my second choice, which was Northeast.
I think tuition was what, like 3 or 4 thousand at the time we were going.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little. I was able to come out of that school with no debt. I worked 30 hours a week, and so that
Hmm.
to me was a, yeah, yeah. You
Yeah.
can't do that anymore.
And honestly, man, like it ended up being a blessing in disguise because my buddy Leonard, who I was just talking about, he actually went to college there. And comparing the curriculums at the time, when you're in an acting conservatory, everything you do, every class you take is acting connected. So whether it be acting, voice, movement, dialects, HDL, which is a class that we had, history of dramatic literature, everything was connected to theater or acting. So they didn't have the basic core, how we had to take the biologies and the chemistries and the maths and all that. Everything there was 100% connected to acting and theater. So going to Northeast ended up being a blessing because it gave you the whole well-rounded skills so that when you didn't have an acting job, when you're pursuing other day jobs and everything, it actually gave you an opportunity to get real work, I guess,
Yeah.
through the acting career. And there are a few jobs that I had where I actually got hired and higher pay because I had a degree from a 4-year school like that. So it ended up being good. So like better choice.
Yeah, I was just saying. I had a BA in theater, but it got me into my first job, with a
Mhm.
with a mortgage company. So,
Yeah.
um, so you're in college. You're at Northeast or Truman, whatever we're gonna call it.
Uh-huh.
What? So you've already. I mean, even then, the whole four years, you're determined that you're gonna go to LA or New York probably, and try to make it from there.
Hmm. Yeah. The goal, like, I never really thought that I would ever end up in New York, ever. Like, I knew that I would either come back to St. Louis for a year and just try to get settled and figure things out, or either move to Chicago or LA. At the time, LA was really big on theater. It's always been a big on theater, but they also had a lot of TV and film stuff, a lot of commercials that were shot there, a lot of movies. So I knew that in college I was going to try to maximize as much as I could there, as far as getting trained and just becoming the best actor that I could be. And then after college, moved to one of those cities. Um, and it's interesting, like college. I think this is like a universal thing, whether you go to a Juilliard or a DePaul or Northeast, whatever. They train you to become better actors, but they don't really talk to you about the business of it.
It's
You
true.
know,
Yeah.
so I mean, I came out of college being a better actor than I was going into it, but then you go into the real world and you kind of forget that, okay, you could be the best actor in the room and not get a part because you might be too tall, too young, you have facial hair, you don't have facial hair, you don't look like someone else who was cast previously. So um yeah, it was an interesting transition, but I ended up moving to Chicago 7 days after graduation and started my career there.
So, did you? So a lot of the conversation before you moved to Chicago or LA or New York, whatever you do with an acting, I remember the conversation was always you have to give it 10 years. And if you don't give it 10 years to try to make it, then you haven't tried.
Hmm.
So did you have any time frame like that or any kind of goal in mind, or you're just going?
Now, I mean, one thing that I knew going into it was the fact that success is subjective. You know what I mean? So, I mean, like, I wasn't going to say, well, if I'm not a series regular or leading a movie in 5 years, I'm going to quit. I knew that this career was a marathon, not a sprint. And I actually come from a family of people who are who have what's considered normal jobs. Like my mom was a teacher, my dad worked for the U.S. government, a Defense Department, and basically most of the people in my family, huge family, or like basically my dad is the third of 17 kids, and I believe 11 of them are in education. Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah.
17 kids?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. So I knew based upon my experience, just around people who had what's considered regular jobs that this is a different thing. And I so in Chicago and the whole perception too, actually. So for example, I started off in Chicago doing theater, little shows around Chicago, didn't really pay a lot of money, but it was just part of the journey, part of building your craft. But in other people's eyes, I didn't become an actor until I got a movie, and that was Home Alone 3, one little line in that was 96, which, for someone coming out of a college in Kirksville in Northeast to actually get a movie after a year being in Chicago was a pretty big deal to me anyway, So, yeah, like in my eyes, it was all about just taking it bit by bit because a lot of people do say, 10 years is the number, but at the same point, you could not get a job for 5 years and then hit the big one after 6 and then not work again. Or after 10 years, hit a couple of big ones. And like there's so much to the journey that you really can't put a time frame on it or a time limit on it.
So what did you do? So when you got to Chicago, you're doing small plays or small productions around the city, and you had the line in Home Alone 3,
Right.
which is awesome. Were you were you doing side work? Were you doing that classic waiting tables or something on the side, or was
So something I told myself was that I would never be a a waiter, or a busboy or work in the service industry, just because like that was a stereotype, So,
yeah?
and the fact that I had a degree too. I mean, like uh, not that it's a negative thing or anything, but just for myself, I wanted to have what's considered a regular job. So my first job in Chicago, I worked for Firestone Tires, selling tires. And then I was there for 2 weeks, hated it. And then I started working for the Fudgery. I don't know if you're familiar with the Fudgery. That was in
Yeah.
St. Louis.
Uh-huh.
So that was my high school job. And they actually opened one at Navy Pier in Chicago. So I started working there. I was like a manager there for 2 or 3 years. 1 or 2 years. I was there for 2 years. And then, yeah, so that was really flexible. I would work nights, and during the daytime, I'd audition. If I got a show, I would change shifts so I could be available at night for the shows. Um, and then after that, I was introduced to someone who was starting an a cappella singing group at Navy Pier, basically kind of like a strolling performer, kind of like what you would see at Disneyland. And the performers would walk around Navy Pier and just entertain the guests, telling jokes, and singing a cappella songs that were a Chicago base, like My Kind of Town, songs like that, and then show tunes as well. And I was doing that. I actually did that up until the time that I moved. So from 97 until 2001, that was my day job. And it was cool because I was performing, but at the same point, it was still a job that helped pay the bills.
Were you singing at the Fudgery too? Because you're performing there, right?
Yeah, yes. But that was more work, I guess, than performing. Yeah. I mean, no one was really a professional singer that could just hold a tune, like myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Yeah.
So did you ever run into issues with like you've got this troupe you're walking around with, or you're working at the Fudgery and you've got an audition at the same time? I mean, you said you would move the schedule around, but has it ever at any point in the last 25 years kind of come to the surface where it's like, you got an audition, but you're scheduled to work?
Something, so what I would do, like the whole thing, being honest is always the key, so most of my jobs that I've ever had have been flexible. So I worked at Navy Pier for like 5 years, 4 years, and that being a performance job, they were really understandable and flexible about that. However, here's a funny story. I had an audition for Home Alone 3 when I first started working, around the time that I first started working at Navy Pier, and it was like my first audition that had a conflict where I was actually called in on a day that I had to work. So I called out sick, and I had to call back. I called out sick again, right? So I found out a week later that my boss, her husband, was working on the movie. So I don't know if she knew that was the reason why, because he was a set construction person. But I thought, okay, that is kind of, I hope I don't get fired because of this, but ended up being cool, ended up being fine.
Yeah. Plus, you're 23 years old, and you don't know what's what, and you're like, yeah.
But like, ended up being fine, and she was really supportive, because at first she was really strict about actors going out in auditions and things like that, or just calling out sick for that. But she ended up being really cool and realizing that, like, in a lot of ways, it ended up benefiting her as far as hiring new people and promoting the job, saying, okay, well, this person was in this movie, this person was in this TV show or this commercial, they came from me. So it ended up being a good thing. Yeah.
So in 2001, you decided to pick up and move to LA. Is that accurate? So why'd that happen?
So at the time, during that time, I just gathered like a bunch of credits. So like there's Home Alone 3. I booked a guest spot on the show Early Edition. And there's a spot on the show Cupid with Jeremy Piven. And then a few commercials here and there, a couple voiceovers. So I basically have a reel of TV and film. And I actually thought about going to New York because it's closer to home than Los Angeles is. But after living in the cold most of my life and being in Chicago, and then I actually visited LA that year before, and it just felt like, okay, if I'm going to struggle, I better struggle by the beach in the sun in December. And LA is a funny place, man. Like when I first moved there, it just felt like everyone was comfortable. Everyone was successful. Like there'd be a Tuesday, I don't know, at 2 p.m, and you'd go to the beach and it'll be packed. Or you'd go on a hike and just be people there. It's like, wow, so this is the life here where just no one really works and everyone's just out having a good time. And then you come to realize when you move there that, yeah, there were probably bartenders, waiters, enjoying their daytime before they had to go to work at night.
Or maybe tourists, maybe, or is it?
Yeah, any combination of anything, but it lends itself to this perception that everyone has money, no one really has to work. Everyone's just out having a good time. When you get there, it's like, yeah, that's not true. So that was January of 2001 that I moved to LA, and then I had to start all over again as far as finding an agent, as far as finding a day job, and that's how that training began there.
So you were there for you're in New York now, right?
Right.
So and you moved there just a couple of years ago?
We moved from LA 2016.
Okay.
September. So I've been here for almost 4 years.
Okay.
Time flies.
So while you're in LA, well, tell me about it. Tell me about your successes or challenges. What did you have to overcome in LA to break the door down and get into your first, I guess, gig or whatever?
Well, being in LA, there's like a lot of ego going into it, especially when coming from Chicago, where I had relative success working there. I was in movies, I was in TV shows, I was in commercials, and then you go into a bigger pond with your credits. Honestly, granted, you have a hand up and people don't have anything, but at the same point, they don't know you. And the business, something that I learned is just it's very relationship based. So you could come from Chicago or New York with all the credits in the world, but if they don't know your work, then you're gonna have a hard time getting in. So I actually took a couple of jobs as an extra. Actually, Amy Bolin,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
um, she worked at Central Casting at the time, so she was able to get me in to do some extra work and make some money while being on set, learning the city because you're constantly driving around to all these different studios, different sets. So it was a way to simultaneously make money, learn the city, and be on set at the same time and try to build relationships. Um, so it was definitely hard, at first for like the first couple of years because I kind of felt like I was the man in a sense coming from Chicago. When you come to LA, everybody is an actor. And even there'd be times where I would go to a bar and see a bartender as someone that I recognize from a commercial or from a TV show or whatever. So it was kind of a humbling experience. So the first thing that I tried to do was find a class, because the thing about acting that I'll always tell people is that it's like playing a professional sport. I mean, a LeBron James and Michael Jordan, they don't stop practicing basketball because the season's out. Like they have to keep practicing, stay in shape because once the season does begin, once it's time to work, you have to be ready. You don't want to be trying to use the beginning of the season or preseason to get in shape. You want to go into the season in shape. So that was the thing, is that I probably hadn't taken a class in a year, so I wanted to get into a class because the thing about acting is that if you don't hone your craft, if you're not studying constantly all the time, that once you get back into a class again, it can feel like you're starting over again. So you have to keep working that muscle. So I got into a class and just started training, and being in class is when you're able to meet other actors, and then they have agents and they like your work. And if they don't feel like you're competition to them, then they'll recommend you to their agent, you know. And then, most of the teachers out there are also actors or directors. And some of the times they would actually bring in TV and film directors to come watch the class, and agents, so that they could find actors as well. So it was, basically about just being there and building relationships in LA so that people can be familiar with who you are and your work.
Yeah, so you started that right away, it sounds like, with
Yeah.
Amy that we went to college with, for sure.
Yeah.
So there were many, I can think of like 5 off the top of my head, people that we were in college with that were out in LA.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, was there any kind of collaboration there, or was everybody just kind of going their direction?
Everybody was basically doing their thing. I mean, so like Luda and Brian Shiner reached out to, and they were pretty helpful as far as just hanging out and just getting to know the city and like getting to know the vibe of the city. And I think I spoke on the phone with Jenna a few times. But like in general, I mean, by the time I got there, because I think those guys had moved out to LA not too far after graduating from college. So they'd been out there for a while before I got there. So they're doing their own thing. But a lot of them were very instrumental in just recommending photographers, acting classes, things like that. So, like that helped. And it was interesting because there was a time, I guess, between 99 and I want to say 2004, where there was a mass exodus of actors coming from Chicago to LA. So basically, a lot of the people who I worked with or auditioned against or auditioned with in Chicago ended up being in LA too. So I mean, like, there's kind of like a Chicago West Coast kind of feel there. So knowing them probably was more instrumental than the people that I went to college with, because you built a relationship with them.
Yeah.
The growth and the process of going.
You know why that was? Why was there that exodus from Chicago to LA?
I think several reasons. So around that time, the Steppenwolf Theater was really popular, and they produced John Malkovich, Gary Sinise, Laurie Metcalf, a few other people, Gary Cole. So a lot of people who had worked in those theaters built relationships with the people who were part of Steppenwolf, and then they were encouraged to come out. And also during the time that I was there was a lot of TV and film that was shot there. Like in the 6 years that I was there was the Home Alone films, Early Edition, Cupid, as I talked about before, then Soul Food, Love Jones, The Fugitive, and The Fugitive, a sequel, U.S. Marshals. There's like a lot of on-camera stuff there at the same time. So a lot of people, who got parts in those basically did the same thing that I did, got their credits, got their reels, and then moved out to L.A. And there was a few agents in Chicago that also had Los Angeles offices. So a lot of people just basically just transferred with the same agency out to the Los Angeles office. Yeah. So it kind of reminds me of how things are now. Like in Chicago, there's all the Dick Wolf, Chicago PD, Med, Law, those shows. And there's Shameless, a few other TV shows that are shot in Chicago. So it kind of reminds me of that time, how things are now in Chicago.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, all right. Earlier you said that success is subjective. But you are and or were pretty close to a couple people that have had, made that textbook, made it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Definition. And that's, what's Leonard's last name? I don't know his last name.
Roberts.
Leonard Roberts. And first time I saw him was it Buffy or Angel?
Oh, it was Buffy. Yeah.
We watched that religiously. So and then we both went to college with Jenna Fisher, who, made it is on The Office or was on The Office.
Mm-hmm.
Did that ever, I don't know, get to use not the right way, or did it, I mean, you're happy for them, but did it ever impact you where you look at it and think, why not me, or what's going on? Or
No, like if anything, it was more of a confirmation that I'm on the right path, because a lot of times people who come out to LA, okay, let's start over. So most jobs, you'll have some sort of connection. So for example, my family, most of the people in my family are teachers. So like a lot of times if you're younger, if you have a goal, knowing someone who's doing the same thing kind of makes you feel like, oh, well, yeah, if they can do it, I can do it too. Just like seeing someone who's successful in anything kind of makes you feel like you can do it as well. So being around Leonard and like knowing Jenna, I was like, okay, well, these are people that I grew up with. Jenna, who I went to college with, they're doing it. They're successful doing it, and success being subjective. Everyone's always trying to strive for higher goals. You know what I mean? So while I look at Leonard and Jenna as being successful, I'm sure in some regards they don't see themselves as being as successful as they want to be. So it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, this is fine, but I'm not going to settle for this. So like knowing them really helped me to say like, okay, well, I'm definitely on the right path. And even had I been in a situation where I hadn't booked jobs myself, just knowing them, and Leonard and I talk daily. So like hearing his stories and everything, it really made me feel like, okay, they had their time. My time is coming at some point. It might not be in the 10 years that people say that is mm-hmm. the typical time frame, but you look at Samuel Jackson, you look at Morgan Freeman, so their time came. And Sam Jackson didn't get general universal recognition until Pulp Fiction, or Jungle Fever, actually. But Pulp Fiction was kind of like the mainstream film that actually, but he had been working small little parts here and there, and then now he's like the highest paid, or like his films have grossed the highest amount of money. So it's a marathon, not a sprint. Yeah,
I think he was jockeying back and forth with Harrison Ford for a while. They were, but okay, so you moved to New York in 2016,
right?
What precipitated that?
So my wife, she got a job,
Okay.
or a new job rather. So she works for Sirius XM Radio. So
Okay.
like she was able to get a job. And at first she was flying back and forth from LA, working with them, and then they're like, okay, it's time for you to either make a decision. You're gonna move to New York, or you're gonna
Yeah.
stay in LA. So we decided to move to New York, and it was like one of those things where I can do my day job anywhere. I can do my acting job in maybe like 4 places in New York, obviously
Right.
being one of them. So yeah, it just made sense.
And your day job now is you work for.
I work for Delta Airlines. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So that's
And you do a lot of traveling.
Oh yes, yes. It's funny. Actually, it's kind of a funny story. So when I got the job, I just planned to just, hey, there's an opportunity to come to St. Louis to see my family and see my parents and all that. And it was actually Claire who was the one who was all about the travel, like going to see the world and everything, right? So when it was time to get married, like me and her had been together for a pretty long time. And when it was time to get married, I was like, something, let's just go to the courthouse. Yeah, and she was like, no, you have these flight benefits. Let's get married in Italy.
Oh.
So we ended up getting married in Italy. So about 2 weeks before we were going to leave for Italy, I auditioned for this show, CSI Cyber. Had like it was like a nice little guest spot. Like normally in TV, when you audition, you find out like the next day or the day after that you got the part. So literally, as we were walking to board the plane to go to Italy for the wedding, my manager calls me up and says, "Hey, Darwin, you have booked the part in CSI Cyber." I was like, "What?" I'm like, "Katrina, I am literally boarding the plane to go to Italy for my wedding right now." She was like, "Oh my God, that's right. Oh, so are you gonna be able to make it? Are you gonna be able to And like Claire was like, "Well, I mean, I can just go and then you can just do the job and just show up." I'm like, no, because like this is going to be an entire experience of us being in Italy. Both sides of the family there, they never met before. It's like it was going to be like a week in Italy before we go to a Ravello for the wedding. So it was just, but yeah. So those are some things that you experienced too. I mean, every time I've been all out offered a job, I've been on vacation.
What?
And it's kind of like an inside joke amongst a lot of actors that say that, okay, if you want to work, take a trip, don't be available, be sick, and you'll get offered work. And I can name a few people who that's happened to.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so, so you're still, I mean, so you're in New York. It's not like, I mean, you have to kind of reconnect with New York, but New York, LA, I mean, they're pretty, I mean, 50-50 as far as getting theater work, or is that accurate?
Oh,
Or
no,
oh, okay,
dude. So here's the thing about LA. LA is not a theater town. LA is a marquee town.
yeah,
So if you want to actually make money doing theater, be a name. Because it's the people that you see who've never done a play in their life who are doing shows at, I don't know, at the Geffen Theater or these big name theaters in LA, and because they bring the audiences in.
okay,
But all that little theater I was telling you about that I was doing in Chicago, I was actually getting paid for there. Those kind of shows in Los Angeles, you aren't getting paid anything. And you'll get, people do theater in LA, at least things were back then, in order to get an agent, in order to be seen, in order for, to invite someone else so that they can see their work. It's like for those who didn't come to Los Angeles with a tape, a demo reel, credits from other cities or the work, people just, okay, hey, let me call up a couple friends. We're going to put together a show, rent out a theater, put it on, and then we'll invite agents and casting directors to come see it. But you aren't making any kind of money doing theater, and LA unless you are a name going to a big theater. But here in New York on the theater side is more like Chicago, where you can make, $200-300 a week doing off Broadway theater, and supplementing that with your day job or whatever, you can actually be okay. But no, I mean, like in LA, it's very much okay, come see me because I want an agent. It's just a showcase, essentially. Yeah. But I mean, like, New York is a different place. I'll never forget when we first moved here, me and my wife were having lunch someplace. And so if you're in LA, you'll hear people talking about, TV agents, film stars, TV stars. They're surrounded by the TV and camera business. Here, you'll hear people talking about theater stars, musical theater stars. And I'm like, I have no idea who these people are. I know what they're talking about. I know they're talking about, seeing Hamilton or seeing Come From Away, whatever, but I don't know who these people are they're talking about. It's very much a musical theater and theater town. Yeah.
That's a really good point. So you'll see the occasional person that maybe ascends, like a Lin-Manuel Miranda who ascends from that theater background to, I guess, be the name you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're right. That's a really good observation. Hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah, it's like people don't. And another thing too, so coming from LA with the additional theater, TV and film credits that I've had, you come to New York, man, they don't care about that. I mean, and it kind of makes sense because people here look at LA actors as people who aren't unnecessarily trained. They're just pretty boys, reality stars who happen to get a part on a soap opera or a TV show or whatever. So you come here and it's like, okay, they really want to see how good you are, because these little credits that you have, while they're nice to have credits, I mean, you're an LA actor, huh? Are you from LA? Okay. It really doesn't mean anything. Whereas someone else who just came off of a Broadway show trying to get a part in Law and Order will be taken more seriously because they know they were on Broadway. And they might not be a good actor, but because they were on Broadway, yeah.
Well, yeah, you said reality stars. So are most of those people like aspiring actors that go on? I mean, it'll say flight attendant or it'll say whatever for their job, but you end up seeing a lot of them, acting or on news channels or stuff afterward. Is that a pretty common thing to take a part in a reality show to try to get out there?
I think, yeah, but I think now with social media though, like it's like the game is completely different. I mean, because you could be someone who uses being on Married at First Sight or one of these, shows, the 90 Day Fiance or whatever,
yeah,
just to get Instagram followers.
Okay.
Verified on Twitter, and then once you do that, then you can parlay that, because the thing about social media is that if I'm on a really popular reality show, right? And then from that, I go on Twitter and Instagram and get millions of, like, say I have, I don't know, 1 million followers on Instagram. Then I can use that to get acting work, because acting is a business, right? So a lot of times people will be like, okay, well, this person already has a built-in audience. So I'm going to hire that person because I know that if he gets cast in this movie or this TV show, we already have 1 million people who are going to come watch the show because they already follow them on social media.
So do you have an Instagram account?
And I have 596 followers.
I think I have an account that I never use. I'll follow you.
Yeah.
Everybody follow Darwin Harris on Instagram.
Yeah. But it's I mean, the business has changed. I mean, if social media was big back in 1995, 96, I'm sure my career would be totally different.
Yeah.
But now it's just, and you'll have people who who actually use Instagram as a day job or as a job. So if I have 1 million followers, there'll be companies who want me to promote their business on their page because they know millions of people are going to see it. So like, it's a whole different game now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I hadn't even, I mean, I thought about it, but not really in that context, that just building it's the same as why you cast Samuel L. Jackson or Harrison Ford in a movie,
Right.
you know, because more people will go see it automatically, regardless of the quality of it.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
Yeah. And, you know, so it's trying to find a balance because like I was saying earlier, you know, we didn't learn about the business in college. So trying to find a balance of being good at my craft, but then, you know, trying to bring people in to be a fan or whatever of yours, you know, is it's kind of a challenging duality. Like there's a lot of stars who don't have social media pages because they want to be 100% about the work, but then there's those who are good actors who also have social media pages because they know that at some point they're going to be 60 or 50, or like at some point they won't be working at all, and then they're going to have like a second stream of, or like a second option to bring income or to help promote their brand. Yeah. Yeah.
So have you done any, I mean, so plays, musicals are big in New York. Have you done any plays since you've been there?
So I did, so fresh from high school, I wrote a musical that was featured in the New York Musical Theater Festival. And, you know, so she's like, hey Darwin, do you want to be in my musical? Sure. You know, she's a woman I've known for a while, who I've actually known from St. Louis. We went to high school together, and she ended up writing this really great musical. So I'm like, okay, yeah, you know, I can sing. She like gives me the music, tells me the parts I'm going to play. So I come to the first rehearsal and sit down, and I'm sitting down in a room with people who've been on Broadway, who are singing these songs. I mean, in rehearsal, they sound like the final product. Like, oh, okay, so I can sing. They can sing. they can sing, man. And it was just, I mean, talk about humbling, man. And just like sitting down effortlessly, just, yeah. And then if you ever go to see like a Broadway show or like a show on Broadway tour or whatever, I don't know if you have or not, but like, yeah, they sound so crystal clear and effortless. It sounds like a recording from the cast album. It's really impressive. Really, you know.
So if you're in a musical, you're the character guy.
Yeah. And that's what I was. I was the good actor who could sing, and they're just the singers who can kind of act. Yeah.
So you're doing Shapoopy while they're doing.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So I did that, and like that was a great experience. Obviously, just being around them, and then I did a show called Hip Hop High, which is kind of a hip hop musical. Did that, and that was a couple of years ago. And ever since then, I've just been auditioning, doing voiceover work, doing. I did a guest spot in the FBI. But voiceover is where it's at.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So there's this underground kind of group that actors know about, but it's really hard to get into. It's called looping. There are loop groups.
Okay.
So what a loop group is.
Are you allowed to tell us about it? You said it's an underground group. I don't.
No, well,
like Fight Club.
It's basically. I mean, you have to know someone in order to get in, and like I just fell into it, man. Like I got really lucky. So a friend of mine, who I went to high school with, recently won an Emmy for her sound on a TV show, and she called it one day. She was like, "Have you ever done looping before?" I'm like, "No, but hey, what you got?" She's like, "So I know some people who are behind a loop group, and they're always looking for actors to come in and do it. So would you be willing to do it? I'm like, girl, I've been trying to do this my entire career. I'm trying to find anybody who knows anybody to do this. Yes, absolutely, I'll do it. So she
So
called me.
looping is just voiceovers?
Yeah. So basically, looping is the best way to describe it is voice background. So say there's a scene in a movie in a diner, and you hear the little voices and the conversations in the background that creates the vocal atmosphere of our scene. So if Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt are having a scene at a diner, we're the voices that you hear in the background, like the chatter. Or if there's a busy street, there's like a scene in a busy street in New York, you like hear like the little voices, like the chatter in the background. Or so there's that. Or say Denzel Washington's having a conversation with somebody on the phone, like a 911 operator. Those aren't actors. Well, those aren't on-camera actors most of the time, unless their face is seen. If it's not seen, it's done in the booth in post-production, and it's us playing those parts.
I hadn't even thought about that because, like, you're not going to put a boom mic on the whole restaurant, right?
Right.
And so, like, will you sit there with a plate and like make the plate noises too, or are you just doing the chatter?
Just the chatter.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so basically you'll be in a room with like a huge screen, and there's a ADR looping coordinator who basically points out the places in the script where they want actors to talk and say little things, whatever. And it's interesting because, for example, if you're doing that scene in a New York street where like people are walking by, they have a microphone set there, they have the screen, and they have the actors talk as they pass by the microphone. So it has the effect of the sound moving as it would on the street. Yeah, so you're like sitting there and they'll just like choose people. Okay, so we need a female and a male to be that couple in the corner moving their lips. So basically you like try to match you create a conversation that matches what those extras on camera are doing.
That reminds me.
Really cool.
Yeah, that would be fun. Do you? I mean, but you don't say goofy stuff, right? Because then, or do you like say, "Oh, I like my potatoes warm," or I mean, what?
Well, like it really depends because I did The Godfather of Harlem, which is an epics, and I did The Deuce on HBO, and both of those are period shows.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing that you can't do is say name brands, and you have to use language that is current to the time. So about a week before you go in, you'll get an email saying, okay, these are the scenes you have to do. And or these are the scenes that we're doing. So it could be anything from a diner. It could be guys who are stock traders in an office. So you have to do your research and like actually learn that lingo for the job you're doing, in the 60s. So it takes a lot of research, but as soon as you go in, they have directors there who tell you, okay, hey, you said this, you can't say that anymore. Or you can't say this because that person said that earlier. So it's it's cool, man.
It is cool.
And you show up to work in whatever you want to wear, sweatpants, pajamas, whatever. And it's basically, so from the pay perspective, you're paid as a principal performer. So you're paid as if you're an actor on camera, actually saying the lines.
So you're paid union wages.
Yeah. And you get residuals and all that.
Yeah, we need to make a list of all. Everybody go to IMDB, look up Darwin Harris, and start watching his shows so you can get that big residual check.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, like, it's cool, man, and it's it's like one of those kind of things where like so many people want to do it because I mean, for example, The Deuce, they hired the same voice actors for the entire season of the show, so it's guaranteed work. And sometimes you'll be there all day. Sometimes you'll be there from 8 in the morning until 11. It's all based upon what they need to be done. So yeah, man, it's a good world to get into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do have one show I want to ask you about because you were in Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
It came out about a year ago because that, Karate Kid for our generation was, I mean, Back to the Future, Karate Kid, those were the movies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so you were in season 2, episodes like
It was
3 and 4.
it was 2 and 3. Wait, was it 2 and 3? It was either 2 and 3 or 3 and 4.
Yeah, you were talking at a table by the pool
Right.
with Daniel LaRusso, Ralph Macchio.
Yeah.
So tell me about that experience a little bit. Give us a kind of a feel for what it's like on a set and how that goes.
It's interesting. So you don't have to do anything. I'm gonna do like a little rewind because it didn't happen on this thing, but when I was an early edition in Chicago, it was my first job in TV or whatever. So my scene it starts off in the car. So I'm in the car talking to Fisher Stevens. And I was like, man, I should have gone to get like a disposable camera or something because this is my first show. Like, I want to get some pictures. So it wasn't even an hour. A PA comes to me and says, Darwin, here's your camera. It's like one of those yellow disposable cameras. So I guess they heard me in the microphone saying it, and like someone, and they got me a camera so I could take pictures on set. So basically, how on a set you show up, and there's a PA there who, hey, I'm Darwin. Oh, how you doing? So I need to sign this paperwork. You sign in, and then they take you to your trailer. You go into the trailer. It's anywhere from a prison cell to a studio apartment, depending on the kind of role that you have, or the contract that you have for the role. And then you have more paperwork to sign. You sign the paperwork and all that, and then someone comes and gets you and asks you, "Hey, we're taking an order for breakfast. What do you want?" So you tell them what you want, and they bring the food to you as you're waiting. So
just like real life.
No, I mean you're being waited on hand and foot, man, and the worst feeling in the world. Well, not in the world, but on your last day, I mean, you don't want to leave. I mean, you don't want to leave because you have this experience, and like in a good set, they'll treat you like family. It's like, okay, we own the house. These guest actors who come in to play part are just guests into our house for the day, so they treat you as such. Like anything you need, the fridge is over here. If there's anything you want out of the refrigerator, go ahead and open it up. Make yourself at home. But on Cobra Kai, it was really, and for a show to be in its second season, they were a well-oiled machine. Everyone was cool. Everyone was really, nice. Ralph Macchio came up and, immediately introduced himself to me, and then we started talking. And one of the things about Ralph Macchio that is completely different than a lot of people is he wanted to run lines. He wanted to basically be as creative with everyone who's on the set as possible. Like a lot of times you'll go into a set and the actors, they expect you to be ready to do your job. And they don't want to really interact with you or just, run lines. Or if their process isn't that same way, then that's just not how they work. But, he pulled us aside, pulled all three of us aside and said, okay, let's run lines. And then while some people were excited to work with Ralph Macchio, I was more excited about Kim Fields. I mean, watching Facts of Life, Tootie.
Yeah, Tootie.
Yeah.
Took me a second, but yeah.
Yeah. But so basically, you show up and on one hand it's a job, but they treat you as if you're a regular actor on the set who shows up every day. And my initially it was supposed to be like a 1-2 episode thing, but then Ralph was pushing for us to come back for more. So we're waiting to see about that because like it was already established that all of us are friends, and I don't think he has a friendship aspect on the show at all. Like basically just family. So he was really pushing the fact like, okay, well now that I've homies, let's let's try to keep that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. So it's a YouTube show, right?
Yeah, a YouTube Premium.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so right now, probably everything with everything is on hold the same way it is for all of our lives.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, hopefully they'll get season 3 and you'll get so maybe an episode or two where you get to show us your chops.
That'd be nice, man. It's, and honestly, of all the sets that I've been on, like that was the one where from the second I walked on, I just felt like I was at home. Everyone was like, it was very, very, very cool, very laid back. And like I said before, a well-oiled machine. Sometimes you go on sets that have been in the air, shows that have been in the air for a long time and be like, it feels like a pilot. Like they don't know what they're doing. But this one was really together.
Yeah, the funny thing about that show is, since Karate Kid is from the 80s, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was a massive, it was a cultural thing for kids our age. But my kids, who are, my oldest is 22, and I've got 2 that are 19, and they love that show, Cobra Kai.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they enjoy Karate Kid, but it was just something they got a kick out of it. So you were in those scenes at the pool. How many days on set was that to film those shorts? Just one day?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it was really quick. And honestly, I mean, the speed of it. So basically, because I guess the whole streaming format now, for like shows like Ozark or shows on Netflix and YouTube, they have a non-traditional shooting format. So they'll shoot essentially 2 episodes at the same time. So it's like called shooting blocks, so that they can just basically pump them out as fast as they can, so that they can then, we can binge watch them essentially.
Yeah.
So like the director, he was quick, man. I mean, like normally in TV you'll get 4, 5 takes, and depending on what happens, like if the camera didn't move right, or if an actor dropped their line, whatever. But with that, it was like, okay, 2, maybe 3, next. Yeah.
That makes some sense, because you used to, the way TV used to be was like you'd film an episode, and if it was a serial, which wasn't that common,
Mm-hmm.
if the next episode they'd like redo like the finishing scene from the previous week.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'd react the whole thing. But now, since we're all just sitting down and we'll just watch the whole show in a day or 2. And you don't need to do that.
Man, there's some shows, I'm not gonna say the name of them, but there's some shows that are on the air where they'll shoot 2 episodes in a day, 90 pages in a day, and these are for shows that air every week. Let's put that into perspective, man. So Days of Our Lives.
Yeah, I was going to say it's like a soap opera. Yeah.
Right. But that makes sense because those shows air every single day. But typically, if you're doing a show that airs every week, you're doing 8 days of shooting a week for 1 episode. But there's some shows that are out there where they'll just try to get them out as fast as they can for syndication.
Mm-hmm.
So that they can make more money off of it down the road. So, because I guess 100 episodes is the golden number for syndication. So, hey, if I can shoot 26 episodes in a month, I'm going to do that, so that in 3 years or whatever, we'll have this, we can sell it to a network for syndication.
So what do you got going on right now? I mean, nothing right now, but what's kind of on your burner at the moment? Or
just waiting, man. Learning monologues, which is a very New York thing.
Yeah.
When I first moved here, I got called in for an audition. Said, okay, I'll prepare a 1-minute comic or dramatic monologue. I'm like, monologue? Like, prior to moving to New York, I hadn't had to do a monologue since 1998. Most of the time, even for theater, in my experience, you're just doing sides. You're just doing, sing, learn to sing, and do that. So all the monologues that I knew were basically from like college, from shows in college or
Yeah.
class, whatever. So now it's just trying to learn new monologues and just trying to stay creative because, like I was saying earlier, I mean, if you just stop acting and just stop using those creative juices, once things do start to pick back up and you start to audition again, you'll be able to tell which ones weren't doing anything and the ones that were. So I'm going to be able to just hit the ground running. So I'm just like learning monologues. A lot of casting directors have been having virtual casting sessions.
Okay.
So what was really popular back in the 80s and the 90s was generals. So if there was a casting director who didn't know your work, whatever, they would call you in for a general meeting where you would do a monologue or do a scene. And that way next time I need to have a African-American guy in his 40s.
Okay.
Here's a new guy who I can call in. He will be cheaper than Cuba Gooding. So, just to have like a new face and I know the new talent. So a lot of casting directors have been doing that, which has been really helpful because you're able to either put up, monologues that you've learned or do a scene that you've done before just to keep you creative. And at the same point, they're able to familiarize themselves with your work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You pulled out a Cuba Gooding reference there.
I'm just saying, someone who works.
It's like you said, it's a journey, man. I was thinking of Ralph Macchio and like,
yeah,
he was, huge in the 80s and then we didn't, I mean, I don't know what else he did between
He's
then
in the
and
Deuce.
Cobra Kai. Is he in the Deuce?
Yeah. Like,
okay.
When I was doing a looping session, people were like, wait, is that Ralph Macchio? I was like, yeah, that's Ralph Macchio. I just came from Atlanta shooting that show.
That's funny. Maybe I'll check it out. I haven't, but that's on, you said it's HBO?
Yeah, it's not the most family friendly series.
Okay.
Just to warn you.
I watch those on my phone, like, but I've my kids are older now, so except for I've got one 12-year-old, so.
Yeah. It's basically about the 1970s, 80s adult industry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's like a Dirk Diggler thing.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like it's I mean it's good, and just actors who are in it that I'm like I kind of met like Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Yeah. Oh.
And like that's kind of a weird. You'll see. I mean, like the character she plays, like I didn't imagine that working, but yeah, it works. So yeah, man, it's fun, and the thing that I have to say about the whole acting thing, man, something that I planned to say earlier was when you're in college or when you're in high school or in grade school, you're like doing your little plays in church, or you're doing your plays in college and high school, and it's all fun, it's all dandy and everything. But I had to really teach myself to get back to the beginning, to the infancy stages, because when you're in college, it's all about the fun. It's all about the joy and the joy of playing. The play is the thing, whatever Leo used to say. But as soon as you graduate from college and like you're out in the real world doing it, it's about getting a job.
Yeah.
and then you kind of tense up and get tight and like lose that sense of play when at the end of the day that's what they want to see. So like the biggest challenge for me has just been, okay, yeah, I want the job, but at the same point I want to just enjoy myself and I don't want to leave the audition thinking about the job. I just want to leave the audition saying, okay, I had a good time doing that, as if I was a 10-year-old playing house or whatever.
Yeah.
If you play house at 10 years old, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I don't. You want to go in, you want to put your best foot forward.
Right.
but you don't have any control over the decision that's made.
Exactly.
So here I am. Here's who I am. Here's what I can do,
Exactly.
and hopefully you pick me. But if you're not going to fight for a role that doesn't fit you at all,
Right.
yeah,
And you know, it's a funny thing because there's a sense of urgency that all actors have. Okay, I want this job. Oh, this is the job that I want. Um, which is fine, but at the same point, the business from that aspect, from the audition aspect, is about planting the seed. So what I've just learned to do is just, I don't want the job. This is my opportunity to just meet someone that I've not met before. It's an opportunity to reconnect with someone that I may have met before. Because at the end of the day, if I go out and do a good job, a kick butt job, if I go out there and do a great job, they're going to remember you. And I've had that happen before, man, so I had an audition for Grey's Anatomy. Dude, I went in and killed it. It's the first audition where I've ever had where on paper it said, and then he cries, where like it says, okay, at this particular point, you have to cry. And after reading the script, it's like, okay, yeah, it makes sense why you have to cry at this point. So, man, I go in there, I do the scene, and the tears start streaming exactly where it's supposed to happen. It's like, yeah! So I'm driving home. The agent calls me up. Darwin, you have a call back this afternoon. I'm like, bet. I go back in, read for the producers. Same thing. Oh, Darwin, oh my God, that was just so great. That was real. Thank you so much. Oh yeah, I got this. So I go to my car. My car doesn't start. My battery's dead. So this woman comes out, probably like easily 15 years older than me, comes out and she's like, do you need help? Like, yeah, do you have jumper cables? So she comes out with the jumper cables. My battery doesn't jump. So she's like, okay, well, let me just take you over to AutoZone and I can get you a battery and you can come back out. So we hop in the car. This woman was coming in from a fitting for an episode of Grey's Anatomy. So we're talking, and she booked the part of the woman that would have played my wife.
Okay.
So as soon as she told me that, I'm like, I didn't get it. I did not get the part because she's so much older than me.
Yeah.
So like, sure enough, my agent called, like, they loved you, but they decided to go older. So, but then after that, Grey's Anatomy called me in straight to producers every time after that. It's like there's a part that I was right for. Instead of going through the whole process of having the pre-read, having the audition, having the producer session, they just brought me straight to the producer session based on that one audition. So all that to say that just like go in and just make an impression and they will remember you.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So any, I think I've gone through my questions and found new ones and asked them. So is there anything you'd like to add on there to the end? I don't know, advice for anybody or just something that you've observed or anything you'd like to say?
I mean, like the things that I can say is probably three things that I can say is if it's something you want to do it. I mean, like if you thought about being an actor and, you know, whether you be in the middle of a career, whether you be retired, there's roles for everybody, you know, I mean, because either it'll be the trend to hire older actors or there'll be a trend to hire younger actors. Somebody's got to play their parents. Someone's got to play their grandparents. And, you know, I look at these actors who have gotten late careers, like, you know, late stars, Morgan Freeman, Sam Jackson, and even Cicely Tyson, even though she's been around for a while, she's 97 years old and still working. So just, you know, if there's something you want to do it and pursue it and always stay ready. Always stay in shape, as I was saying earlier, because it really is like going to the gym. And it's just like, don't give yourself limitations. I mean, if there's a part that, because the thing about auditioning is that there's two things. The casting directors and the directors, one, rarely know what they want. Two, they want you to do well. So there have been stories I've heard where the role was written a certain way, but then someone else came in and changed their mind. They decided to go, the role was written male, but they decided to go with the female. The role was written white, but they decided to go black. And like those kind of things happen more often. I won't say more often than not, but more often than you would think. Especially nowadays where people are more open to flexibility. So it's written as a family of four, all white family of four. Okay, well, this actress killed it. Why can't she be part of the family? She can be adopted. We can just change the script to like where she's so I mean, because you never know. I mean, there's actors out there who are the best actors in the world who aren't working, and people who are just okay, who actually fit a mold, who have a particular type that is trendy or popular right now. So if it's something you want to do, go ahead and do it. And you don't necessarily have to be in LA or New York to do it. I mean, you can do theater in your local town. And with the quality of cell phones and cameras and things like that, you can write your own script and like shoot your own thing and like post it on social media. Next thing you know, someone's calling you to come out and turn it into a series or turn it into a movie. So it's just way too many. If you want to be creative, be creative. Yeah.
Is that the three things?
I think that's the three things.
All right. I one thing in there struck me, you said, is they want you to do well. So the people you're auditioning for, we think of whatever, Simon Cowell, they're ready to just destroy you at the moment you open your mouth. Mm-hmm. And even he wants people to do well. You can see it. But that's true for anybody. If you're listening to this and you're 18 years old and going on a job interview, nobody wants you to go in there and be horrible. I would say that 99% of people around you want you to succeed in one fashion or another. So be positive. Most people are your allies. Mm-hmm. And that's a really good piece of advice.
Because at the end of the day, they want you to make their job easier. I mean, you go in there and doing a good job is just making the job easier. And even if it's not an acting job, I mean, be transparent. I will never forget this story. Kenner Estes had a job interview, but he had a job, but he had a job interview for like a different company, and like they basically wanted him to come into the office the same day for the interview.
Okay.
He worked in tech, and he was like, okay, well, I work in like this is a tech job, so if I come to my job wearing a suit and a tie, they're gonna know something's up, So he's like, I'm gonna come in dressed how I work, but you have to promise me not to judge me based on that because I'm coming from my job, So just always be honest, just be transparent, and the opportunity where you have to wear a suit and you can, of course, just for an interview, but at the same point. Just be yourself, be honest, and
cool.
Yeah.
Well, man, I appreciate your time. It's really good to see you again after 25 years.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I'll just say to everybody out there, I'm glad you watched this and made it to this point. Would love you to subscribe to the channel. Hopefully, if you want to hear more stories like this, I'm looking for people also. So if you have a story, as you can see here with Darwin, it doesn't have to be some major life event. I'm just looking to share people's stories. So if you have a story, somebody interesting that they've got a journey to tell or something that would fall in here, I'd love to hear about it. You can email me at regularamazingpeople at gmail.com. or just write a note in the comments, or look me up on Facebook. I'm Dirk Pointer is my name. And Darwin, really good to see you today, and
Thank you,
thanks for
man.
your
It was
time.
great. Appreciate
Yeah,
you, man.
good luck out there. We'll look for you in the movies.
All right. Thanks, man. Thank you.
All right.
All right.